right, we're rolling now. Thanks so much, Jonas.
You're welcome, man. How's my lighting? Are we looking good?
Yeah, look great. That's a nice picture in the background. I'm trying to get something similar going back
I
here,
need to
but
frame. I need my frame myself better here. I'm not much of a filmmaker at the moment, right?
yeah, maybe I should do a little bump. But yeah,
Yeah. No, I've been meaning to build this out a little bit more, put like, trophies or whatever on the walls behind me like everybody else does, but haven't quite got to it yet. I've been too busy.
so yeah, a lot of people don't know this, but your company actually moved to Georgia fairly recently. Can you describe what that's been like, not being in LA as often now?
Well, I mean, I'm back and forth between Los Angeles and Georgia. I moved to Georgia during COVID. We shoot a lot of, the productions we do here, and I work on production. I work on the production side, innovation side, you know, um, those types of things. So it's really not been that crazy because almost everything we do, much like this conversation now, is over Zoom or over Google Meets or what's Amazon use Chime, right?
Yeah,
So it's not really been that difficult of a thing. I also, one of the great things about the Atlanta area is that it has an airport that pretty much gets you anywhere in the world on
yeah.
one flight. So I fly back to Los Angeles. I've been back and forth to Hawaii multiple times for productions. I go to New York at the drop of a hat. So it's been great.
Yeah, the convenience of that is nice. I know because I'm in Nashville right now, and like I have to at least have one connection per any part of the US I want to go to, pretty much, unless it's like Atlanta because it's right there. But
Right.
yeah.
Nashville's a great area. Nashville's a great area. It's there's a reason that oh, excuse me. There's a reason that Atlanta has become such a hub for filmmaking and for TV shows. And then part of it is, well, the tax incentive is obviously a huge factor, but it's also the fact that you can get actors in and out. All the studios are really based like 20 minutes from the airport. So, especially the bigger ones. So it makes it very easy to get celebrities in and out of town, set up. And plus they have all the amenities, of course, of a big city because it's Atlanta. It's a major hub. So yeah, it helps.
So with that, like with respect to the tax incentives and some of the production benefits of some of these states, like what kind of offerings have states made your company or other companies, like what to incentivize more production activity there?
They just offer these really good incentives. Atlanta especially offers fantastic incentives. It's uncapped, so it brings a lot of the bigger budget productions here. Other states offer different types of incentives that are better for like lower budget productions, that sort of thing.
Hmm.
But basically, you're always looking at two different things because the amount of the incentive has to be such that it covers getting everybody out of Los Angeles and to Georgia. Also, how many actual crew are in the area? There's a ton of crew here in Georgia. Physical trained crew. They have a training facility right down the road from me at the Trilla Studios that trains grips and electricians and the basic crew that you need that you don't really want to transport from Los Angeles. Right. So there's it's a great hub. Nashville, I'm sure has Tennessee, I'm sure has a film incentive. Kentucky now has one that's really good. These I just read something about an Oklahoma film incentive this morning. Almost every state has something, but the question is how much do you have to ship in? Does it make sense monetarily to ship everybody in and make the production there, or does it make more sense to just make it in Los Angeles? Majority of the Los Angeles still makes the most film TV shows, period. The bigger stuff is just shipped out of the state because of the incentives.
Got it. Yeah, I remember being really surprised because I was a fan of one of your company's shows, Prison Break, back in the day. And I was
Mhm.
surprised to learn that I think most of that show was shot in Canada, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, yeah. Canada has fantastic film incentives, and the Canadian dollar against our dollar is weak. So you get more for your dollar there. So those two things together really you can put a lot of show on the screen for a lot less money.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So I mean, I know we didn't want to go too much into this, but just briefly, if you could just talk about like your background, how you got started as a producer, and some of the inspiration behind some of the decisions you make now.
Sure, sure. I started actually, I was going to be in politics, and I realized very quickly at UC San Diego, which has a great political science program, that it wasn't for me. And what I did was I had made a short film that had people were really excited about for one of my classes, and I decided to test that out and try it out. What I learned really quickly, though, was that in order to be in the film industry, you needed to be in Los Angeles. So I just packed up my things and moved to Los Angeles after I did multiple things in San Diego. I worked on a bunch of Disney shows. I worked on Titanic. I worked on a bunch of things, mostly as like a PA and a grip or electrician, things like that.
Yeah.
And then, I came to Los Angeles, and, this was 25 years ago. I worked for 3 months for Original Film, which ended up becoming my home. I worked for them for free for 3 months, waiting
Hmm.
tables and just like everybody else used to do. Now there's rules against it, but uh, and then they eventually offered me a job, and the company at the time was making like 10 to 20 million dollar movies. Now we make $300 million movies. So, the company had continued to grow over the years and is now one of the most established companies in the film business.
So, what traits or attributes do you think led to them deciding, yeah, this guy would make a good producer, good at packaging stuff? Like, what kinds of things were you involved with that gave them sort of that idea?
Everything in the film business is about initiative.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't think there was anything that they said, "Hey, let's bump this guy up." I went out and just did it. Original Film is a company that allows that environment. They don't care who brings what in. They're very supportive. They get behind you if you just put in the work. So for me, it was about just putting in the work and bringing those things forward. And then that's when the upward mobility came. Was I basically went out and put together some things on my own and brought them into the company.
Yeah, I've heard similar sort of analogies used when talking to like literary managers, that a lot of writers come into uh, the writing game in LA kind of expecting the manager to sort of hand them projects and different things, when in reality, most managers want a writer that's actively involved with projects, or at least has the initiative to go out and find them. Because all a manager really wants at the end of the day is to just be right there to, collect on it. And
No,
so
it's
that,
not. People don't understand, especially writers, don't understand what an agent or actors don't understand what an agent and a manager does. So, an agent and a manager is basically somebody there who's there to help shepherd your career. Uh, Especially an agent. An agent, and I mean, look, it's not that they're not actively out looking for jobs to put you in, right? But they have a bunch of clients, and a lot of times they're fielding offers for their bigger clients. So if you're a smaller client, you need to get out and hustle. What an agent and a manager does is it gives you a bit of prestige. That means somebody else cares about you and is on your team and helping you move forward, right? Especially early on in your career, you need to be out hustling on your own, but your manager is somebody you can go to and go, "Can you get me in a room with Jerry Bruckheimer?" "No, but I can get you in a room with his VP." "Cool. I have this thing I want to bring to him. I want to go in on, I heard there's a project that he has." You need to be very proactive. And then, because you're the leader of your own team, basically, as a writer, you need to be the proactive one. And this is I mean, the biggest writers on the face of the earth will tell you the same thing. They don't rely upon their representatives to get them work. What they rely upon their representatives is to help them move things forward once they've started the process. So, what you need to do as a writer is you need to figure out who you are, and at that time, let your manager know, I want to be out on, let's say you're a horror writer. I want to be on every horror writing job. That means they don't have to worry about, when there's a horror writing job they want to be in. But it's also your job to push them as well and move them forward. I guess that's a long explanation for saying you need to be proactive and have them help you, not the other
Yeah.
way around.
Well, as a producer now, I mean, you've read. I don't want to ask how many scripts you've read throughout the years.
I don't even know anymore. I don't even know.
Yeah,
I have an
probably.
assistant, and they read a ton more than me, and yeah.
Yeah, but when you finally get brought something that really grabs your attention, what are some of the key elements of that screenplay that you're like, I can see this on screen. I can see this as a package. Like, is it not only the script? Is it maybe an actor that's agreed to do the script? What are the things you look at that help you make that determination?
Original Film is a marketing first company, meaning we are looking for things that are high concept, that we think are culturally relevant, that are new worlds that we want to explore from a different point of view, things like that. So the first thing I'm really looking at is there an audience for this? And do I know how to get to that audience? Is it an audience that we sell to?
Yeah.
Right. We just went through awards season, and you'll probably never see an original film movie at the awards. Not that we wouldn't love an award, but it's not our focus. Our focus is making commercial movies and TV shows that connect with a Gen Z, I guess you would call them today, audience, but also have the ability to bridge into a 4-quadrant audience. Meaning it's going to connect with people in a certain way, and they're going to want to go to a movie theater to go see it. We also are making such high concept big things that we're able to sell Dodge cars, and we're able to sell video games, and we're able to sell toys and t-shirts and everything else. Those factors come in later, but they generally go along with what we're trying to do. But the first foremost thing is, what's the poster of this and what's the trailer of this? Can I see those things in my head? If I can't, I'm generally going to pass. No matter how good the writing is or how much I like the characters or so on and so forth. If I can't see a way that I am selling this to an audience at the end of the day, it's not for me.
And over the years too, I mean, I think one of the things you had mentioned before is, as the company's sort of grown, you're looking to expand into more international audiences. So is that also a factor with your 4-quadrant kind of demo? Is how will this be received in other countries besides the US as well? Or
Oh, 100%. I mean, Original Film has $12 billion in theatrical sales. 7 billion of that is overseas. So
wow.
over half of our money comes from overseas these days. Yeah, our movies traditionally do very well. We make the type of films that translate easily. So action movies, which are probably our core action adventure, everybody pretty much understands, things blowing up, getting kicked in the head, the jumping cars.
Yeah.
They understand that those are things that are in every culture in the world. Comedy is a little tougher in terms of comedy's generally like cultural,
Yes.
right? Drama is tough because in a lot of countries, for example, France, they won't allow another language in their theaters, so everything has to be dubbed.
Wow. I didn't know that.
And you're gonna lose something in the translation of it. You're gonna
Mm.
lose something with the actors. It just isn't the same experience. But a car racing around the corner is the same experience whether it's dubbed or not.
Right.
So, horror films traditionally do very well overseas as well, although there's limitations on them now. Like the R-rated stuff is tougher to sell. So,
Yeah.
but
And
yeah, yeah.
uh do you suspect like other companies like Disney have already kind of like they've made that their prerogative as well? I imagine a lot of their revenue streams, at least from box office, probably skew that way as well because they try to go for four quadrant big PG-13 style films. So I imagine their numbers are similar in that respect.
Yeah, I mean, I think Disney, up until recently at least, was very, very focused on one core audience, which was family,
Mhm.
and going after that audience and being, delivering a quality project could that was seen all over the world. Plus with animation, it's different. Animation in France, uh, the act, it's okay. Like it's just a talking mouth. You're not losing anything with the acting. You may
Right.
lose something with the translation, but it's an easier sell to do an animated movie in a different language. Um, in my opinion, I'm sure there's animators out there that are going to disagree with me, but I think every company really understands that we are in a global market now. There's companies like A24 that are very
Mhm.
focused on the domestic market. They also have a very different marketing style. Their marketing is very much social media based. So yeah, look, I think you know Disney is going after that core audience that they've developed over, I don't know, 100 years or something now. You know,
Yeah.
um, yeah, and I think that's also the future of filmmaking is that these studios are going to start just this is our audience and let's focus on it and make this kind of more of a community than just selling them a product.
Got it. Okay. Well, with respect to sort of the direction that the industry is going in, I mean, the industry was dealt like two pretty large blows in recent memory. I mean, first you had COVID, and then you had the strike. For those who aren't familiar with the writers and the actor strike, could you kind of summarize what the terms in question were about and what that means now for the rest of the industry?
Um, that the writers with the rise, the COVID was one thing. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out where to start with this conversation.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, COVID was one thing. There was actually a boom of filmmaking and TV shows during COVID, because there was a streaming war, basically. That did two things. Because they relied so heavily on the streaming war, they let traditional sources go. And people started cutting the cords because they were getting the same quality output on a streamer that they were on CBS or ABC or any of these other channels. A lot of the bigger filmmakers and TV producers and such went to these streamers, A, because they were welcomed with open arms. It wasn't such a fist fight to get in the door.
Yeah.
Um, B, because they were offered very lucrative deals to do so. So there was really a boom during COVID to the fact of when I was on set, I mean, people were quitting constantly, which used to be unheard of, just in the middle of production because they were getting better offers because there
Wow.
wasn't enough crew. And this is here in Georgia. This is also in I shot here in Georgia, I shot in Louisiana, I shot in Montana, and I shot in Hawaii. And this happened in all these areas. People, the crew members, grips, electricians, hairstylists, I mean, greensmen, everybody were literally just packing up and going to another job because it paid more. And there was a rush to get things made because the world didn't know if it was going to shut down again. And there was also a streaming war happening because the world thought movie theaters are never going to open back up, and everything is moving to streaming now. And it really was a crazy time.
Yeah.
Then right up until about the end of 2022, that was the case. Then the writers and actors threatened to strike. And basically what happened now was companies like Netflix and all these bigger companies had built up a stockpile of content that could last them for a long time. So they were comfortable waiting out a strike to a point. And during that time also now though, the business, they're reassessing their business models. And a big factor of all this is no one's looking at YouTube, who's really come in and dominated the space. Netflix doesn't consider Paramount or Universal their competitors. They considered YouTube their competitor. And it's because the younger generation, I wouldn't even say younger, I would say all generations. I was just at a place yesterday and it was like a theme park with my kids. And I'm looking around and the parents aren't even watching their kids. They're all watching YouTube or TikTok or Instagram feeds. I don't watch stuff when I'm watching with my kids. I've learned to set the phone down. But you know, the audience has moved in that direction. They're watching less content on the streamers. So now there's a fight over eyeballs that are continually there's less and less eyeballs on streaming, with less and less eyeballs on all the platforms.
Do you
And
think it's like
everybody's
an attention span thing?
No, I just think that uh I think there's a couple things happening with all of it. I think there is so much it's a lot easier to jump on YouTube. I think that's number one. Number two, YouTube finds a way to speak directly to you and feed you what you want to watch.
Yeah.
So if you're crazy about cars, it will find other car stuff and just be like, hey, watch this. Hey, watch this. Hey, watch this. I believe that the other platforms do that as well. The other social media platforms do that as well. So yeah, look, there's a lot of competition in the world right now, and it's not getting less, it's getting more. So the money now is moving into YouTube. The money's moving into other platforms, and I think away from the studios and traditional media. That doesn't mean that there's, the film business, the TV business goes through cycles like this, where they get comfortable, they get into a certain business model, and then that business model is disrupted by some sort of technology. Or they've pushed too hard into one thing. Sundance came out of an era where the studios basically spent a bunch of money on movies that didn't work and were kind of close to bankruptcy. So there was a movie called Heaven's Gate, which is considered one of the final ones of that era. But out of that came Sundance. And Sundance now was this way where the studios could go in and buy a movie that somebody else had developed, financed, so on and so forth. And then out of that era came VHS. And then out of that era came DVD. And all of a sudden there was these new ways of making product and selling it where you didn't need to rely upon one revenue source, which at the time was movie theaters, right? You can now rely upon a new revenue source. I think what we're in the middle of right now is figuring out what that transition is and understanding that transition and understanding what we need to do in order to get back into a proper revenue stream. I know this is a long-winded way of saying that these writers strikes and actor strikes are about an old revenue model that's been going away, and a new and AI and a few other things that are coming that they're concerned about, that are tough because they haven't figured out how to everybody make a decent living with 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 the way the money's coming in at the moment.
Well, and the technology just seems to exponentially be getting better so quickly. I mean, we were talking about Sora before we started this. What do you think Sam Altman meeting with studio heads and Sora putting out 4K 30-second clips of whatever you want means for this business?
I think what it's going to do, it's going to change how we make movies. Unless there's some sort of government steps in and stops it for some reason, which that's a very big possibility at this time. But the fact that like Tyler Perry stopped building his studio because he was like, I might not need sound stages here soon. What it's also going to do is going to democratize making a movie or making a TV show. There's still going to be there's going to be younger filmmakers that can now get their stories out into the world. Can they sell them? That's another big question. Are they going to figure out a way to monetize them? That's a big question. But I do think that the studios are they're obviously considering it. They're looking into it. And I think it's going to change the business dramatically. I think it already is changing the business dramatically. I know I use generative AI when I'm trying to put together a document, help me with my spelling errors and my formatting and those sort of things. I think almost everybody is at this point. And if you're not, it's a total time suck doing it the old-fashioned way, right? So I think everybody's becoming more comfortable with these things. It's tough because I obviously come from a traditional filmmaking. I mean, I grew up literally making movies where you had to use what it was called a guillotine to cut the film, like, and tape it together. And that's how we made our first couple movies, was like taking actual film, having it processed. There's no more film processing anymore. Everything's digital. There's editing so much faster. All these things that I grew up doing in film school no longer exist. Or they would be done just because it was like, hey, let's show you how we had to do it back in the day and how time consuming it was to clip a movie together in an actual. I mean, there was a guy that was his job. His job was cutting the movie, literally cutting a movie and putting it together, like The Godfather. Those movies. There was a guy who would literally cut pieces of The Godfather and put them together in actual film. That, I mean, these technologies come along and they disrupt the industry. I feel like we figure it out. I think everybody's very scared. And I think also, if you're a film cutter, you should start looking for something else if digital technology is going to wipe out your job. Right? And there's a lot of very smart people that are going to get into just that change. But the change is coming, whether people like it or not, whatever rules they put in their union contracts or not. The studios have to abide by those union contracts, but I know plenty of people who are not in the studios who are making movies right now.
Well, and now I think actors are weighing whether or not they should license their AI likeness to commercial companies and things like that. Why work one gig, in a month when you could possibly get licensing deals for 20 in that period? So that's another thing. So it is original film like talking about that right now with respect to AI? Like how is this something that can be leveraged in our business model?
We're not talking about AI movies yet. We are a premium company. We're still making movies. We don't feel like the technology is there to consider it for us personally. We're also one of the few companies that still has big studio deal, so on and so forth. So, you know, it's not something we're looking at right now. I still think we're a minimum 2 years away from even really being able to put together a real film, and then what is the quality of that film at that point, right? Like, you know, it also talks about the, you know, what type of film we're talking about putting together. Animated? Is it a horror movie? Is it action? You know, these things have different, you know, the platforms work differently. You know,
Yeah.
it's tough. But you know, a lot of what we do right now is VFX. I think it's going to change the VFX business dramatically. I think it's going to help scale and reduce the cost of VFX at minimum. I feel also, you know, there's already sound stages where you can basically be anywhere in the world right now. You don't need to be, you know, there's 2 sound stages right down the street from me. You've seen the technology used on like the Mandalorian,
Yeah.
but they're basically digital screens that basically allow you to be anywhere in the world. That you don't need to be in, you know, Georgia to shoot in to make it look like Georgia.
Yeah.
You can make it look like Georgia from Canada. You can make it look like Canada from Georgia. Like there's, you know, we already are using these types of technologies. So it's not, it doesn't scare me personally.
Hmm.
I think these things are, you know, I think the value of storytelling and the craft of it doesn't change. I just think the technology to make it changes.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot to think about going forward, especially for people that are just getting into the business as either writers or aspiring producers. Um, since I know we're trying to wrap this up soon, are there any like closing thoughts you'd want to leave with people out there who maybe are much like yourself or maybe came from a different field and think, hey, maybe this film thing's actually for me? Like, what should they be looking at to advance uh, a career in that field?
You know, what's nice is now the barrier to entry is not as tough. I think people should look at producing small things first, as always, if they're just starting out, and testing out new technologies and getting ahead of these technologies and understanding them at minimum, you know, instead of just pushing them away and being frustrated by them. And I also think that, you know, it's change is just inevitable. And so I embrace it personally. I don't run from it. I don't fight it. I just see that it's coming and I try to do my best to get out in front of it. So there's my advice. Just get out in front of it if you can.
Great.
Cool.
Thanks so much, Jonas.
I appreciate it, Aaron. Have a good one.